Welcome to The Law. This is your Legal Light and Health Law. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyenini. And today, what do you make of the law? What is the law to you? In recent times, many people in Ghana have expressed confusion about what exactly the law is. They say that they hear judgment from the courts and they hear politicians interpret the law and they get confused as to what exactly the law is. There have been rules that have been set for coronavirus protocols. They have been breached by other people and who have found themselves on the wrong side of the law. They have been breached by some other people and nothing is happening. People say, what is the law? The law is on us. Is it? We'll be right back. We'll be joined by students who are studying the law in our various universities, public universities across the country, to share their views on what they perceive to be the law and whether it is working or it is not working. Is the law on us? At the right time, we'll ask you to share your view with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is The Law. This is your Legal Light and your Health Law. An assembly of law students, people who are learning, studying the law in our various universities. Are their perspectives also changed? Are they also confused about what is the law, just as some of you have told us? Joining us via Zoom are law students from 4 of our public universities, and Rosalind Ama Inkum is from the University of Cape Coast Law Faculty. Tracy Ekuya Ansa Ofosu is from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Maame Sewa Tofo is from the University of Ghana School of Law. Bernadette Fafa Ankuvi is from the Central University, and also Kweku Apreku Ejapong is from the University of Ghana. Gentlemen and ladies, good afternoon and welcome to The Law.
Good afternoon, Samson.
Good afternoon, Samson.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good to hear your voices. So, on the occasion of Father's Day, let me discriminate and start with Kweku. Right. So, Kweku, what do you make when people say they are confused in appreciating what the law exactly is, particularly in Ghana, because many people have varied interpretations of the law, particularly political people. One judgment is given and everybody is giving it different interpretations. What do you say to them as a student of the law?
Well, I believe that all hope is not lost yet. The main problem, I think, arises from the fact that we do not have the ability to decipher what the law is to the common man in a comprehensive and a standardized manner. So you would observe that a lot of things that persons know, or persons that affect people's daily lives, such as payment of, such as bail, things like being stopped by the police, constitutional matters. We don't really have that substantive knowledge of it because the nature of law is quite technical in the courts, and people don't really get the understanding of these issues. How we can remedy it is maybe trying to create a system where it is incorporated, basic legal concepts are incorporated in primary education to ensure that every person who is educated in Ghana has a fair idea of what the law is. But for now, honestly, I don't think all hope is lost. I just think that the technicalities of law at times comes in to affect how justice is served or how justice is perceived. But it's actually a legitimate concern because justice is not just what it is, but the perception of justice is important. And so that's my take on it. So all hope is not lost yet, but there is more to be done.
All right. Now, Tracy, when people say there are ordinary Ghanaians who are arraigned, and when they appear before court, even getting bail is so difficult for them. Some of them are thrown in. But when the rich get to be facing the court, it's so easy for them to get bail. And sometimes we hear them report that they are sick, they have a certain ailment, and therefore they are granted bail. But so people say the law is for the rich and not for the poor. And for them, that makes nonsense of the constitutional provision that all are to be equal before the law. How do you communicate to people who think this way, that the law is just for the poor in Ghana, it's for the rich in Ghana?
Well, as Kweku said, one of the biggest issues with understanding of the law is that people don't realize that the law is technical. Unfortunately, most of the regular Ghanaians do not have access to proper legal education. And it's the wealthy who have access to proper legal education who understand their rights and are able to use that education to their benefit. So until we start incorporating the law and explaining the technicalities of the law, then there will always be the perception that the law is not equal, but then it leans more towards the wealthy than to the average Ghanaian. Because if we look at the practical aspects of the law, for the most part, the law in Ghana does apply equally to everybody. But then because a lot of people see the law as something so distinct and so separate from regular Ghanaians, they have this perception that it only applies when it is the wealthy in play. But then they don't have the law on their side. So until we are able to break down the technicalities of the law and help people understand that truly their rights are protected by the Constitution and they have every right to ask for and enforce these laws, then this misconception will continue to prevail.
Rosalind, not too long ago, a lady who is known popularly by the name Akuapem Polo was before the courts. And as we understand, eventually the sentence that was handed to her, even though it's custodial, is like the least she could get, because she could have faced years in jail. And yet, even though she got a small, bit of the sentence, there is a hue and cry that that was harsh. Now, people are saying, because she's a celebrity, she's getting all the support. But there are very poor people in Ghana who have been thrown into jail for years for very minor offenses than she has committed. If someone approached you on the basis of this and said the law is confusing, what will be your explanation to them? Yes, Rosalind, go on.
Yeah, I think that people have every right to be confused at this level, because she was arraigned before court and actually convicted for a period of 3 months, and then within a few days.
Okay, so the line there is getting a bit bad, but we'll reconnect it. And Rosalind starts from the point that people are right to complain. They have every right to complain, particularly where she's already convicted and she's supposed to go and serve a sentence. And then within 2-3 days, she's out there.
Hello?
Yes, Rosalind, go on.
Sorry, I had to reposition myself.
That's great. Go on.
Yes. And then within a few periods, she was out. I think indeed they have every concern to think that because she's a celebrity, she got a pardon to be out of jail. If it was indeed a regular Ghanaian who was actually put behind bars for a period of 3 months, the person would have probably had to serve all the total 3-month sentence. So it's quite confusing. That sometimes it's quite confusing. That's what makes people think that sometimes it's about who has the ability to pay, and then the law doesn't go in favor of the poor people.
So is the law an ass?
I would say to some extent, yes. But then in other aspects too, the law works perfectly.
Interesting. Let's also bring in Fafa to get Fafa's viewpoint on this. Yes, Fafa, what do you say? Why do people find it difficult to appreciate the law in our part of the world?
Hi, Samson. Thank you for your question. I believe that in our part of the world, people can't appreciate the law because those who we have selected to represent us don't even adhere to the law themselves. They break it and expect us to live by the rules that they have set. But leadership by example, that's my principle. That if you want your citizens to go according to the ways, then you set the path for us to tread. But if they are breaking the laws, it's hard to compel the citizens to adhere to the rules that they have set. We've entrusted them to do this for us, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. It's obvious that the system is plagued with, selective justice, that our leaders can flout COVID-19 rules, while those who held a religious event were held accountable. But if that's going to be the case, everyone should be held accountable. No one gets to flout the law and get away with it because they're in a high power of position, you understand? And the unwillingness to apply the law. There are many policemen at the just ended religious events who could have made sure that the law was applicable in that regard. But that being okay.
Right.
We've seen many examples of that in various things that occur in this country. Thank you.
Right. Let's hear from Ms. Sewa. In your study of the law so far, is what you are studying what you see play out in reality as far as the law is concerned in Ghana?
Thank you very much for the question. I believe that in my study of the law, when it comes to lots of statutes, our constitution, we have very flowery sentences in there that is supposed to tell us, register the kind of freedoms we have, the kind of rights that every citizen is entitled to. But when it plays out in reality, this is far from it. It's far from what we see. It's far from what it's supposed to be. It's far from the litter of the various statutes that we have in this country. I can cite an example of what happened with regards to the law students. I mean, clearly, the law students went to protest, and in our constitution, Chapter 5 guarantees us the right to assemble. The law students went through all the procedures to guarantee that they could do that, and they got there, and we all know what happened. There are so many other instances that the freedoms and rights that we have been guaranteed as citizens are not playing out as they are supposed to. So there is a very big difference between what I am studying now and what I am seeing around me.
Interesting. Back to you, Kwekwa Prekwejapong. Now tell us, is what is playing out within this country as you have observed your reality from what you are studying? And you have already said there's a need to incorporate legal education, a bit of it, basic, into standard, basic education for everybody to appreciate the law. But if this is not what you're studying, it's not your reality, what can we do so people don't lose faith in the law?
I think we can start with the strengthening of democratic institutions, such as TRAJ, the judiciary, the Registrar General, and other institutions that are supposed to ensure that the law is enforced equally. And I also believe that there should be a fundamental change with how laws are even passed in the country. And I'll give you a very good example. If you look at the definition of stealing in the Criminal and Other Offences Act, it basically lends the same indicia or ingredients to an act or a criminal offence such as causing financial loss to the state. But you would observe that most often than not, poor people cannot cause financial loss to the state because they are not in that position to do so. So causing financial loss to the state attracts what maximum three years in prison as a misdemeanor. Acts of corruption and co are not seriously punished. But an offense like stealing, an individual can steal a tube of yam and go in for 15 years. I'm of the view that we should have a fundamental and honest conversation, an apolitical conversation, on how we can review our laws to reflect our aspirations. And so this would start by we obviously strengthening the democratic institutions and ensuring that the average Ghanaian is informed enough to make reasonable criticisms, because one problem we lack, or one thing we lack, is that because a lot of people don't really know, the political class takes advantage to take ignorance of many people and do what they want to do. But if the average Ghanaian is adequately informed, he or she can hold leaders accountable to what is right in the sense of legal technicalities, of responsibilities or whatever, and ensure that the right thing is done.
Do you say the law is on us?
I don't think so, because the law itself is what came into protect.
After all you have said, all you have said so far, you don't think the law is on us?
No, I think it's being used. The law itself inherently is not an us, because for every selective justice example somebody can point out, I can equally point out an Abebrese Nka or a Kwatson and Kwatson, where the rights of women in marital distribution of marital property was protected. For every unequal enforcement of the law, I can equally show you an Article 22, for instance, that says that spousal property is supposed to be distributed equitably, or an Article 17 that says that persons should not be discriminated against. So, you see, the law is an inanimate thing. Sowa said it's the Constitution is a living organism, but right. It's what we make it to be. It's the leaders make it. It can be weaponized, so it can be weaponized to destroy, and it can also be a shield to protect. So I think we should then start from ensuring that those who are placed in charge of enforcing it are right in the first sense of the word. Right,
Rosalind, what do you say? Kweku has mentioned leadership, and I'm sure we also heard either Tracy and Fafa also mention leadership. So from where you sit, first tell me, is the law on us? If it is, if it could be weaponized, as Kweku is saying, what can be done to ensure that everybody is in fact equal before the law? Okay, so I understand that I just lost Rosalind there, but Rosalind will reconnect with us. Tracy, if you can take up that question.
I'm of the firm opinion that the law is not an us, because there are various practical examples of situations where the law has come into place to both bring about fairness and equality in various aspects of our society. Let's look at the impact of the interstate succession law to the distribution of the property of a deceased.
Right.
Now, the instance of customary law determining who gets what and leaving the spouse of the deceased and their children with nothing is a thing of the past. Even when we look at Section 13 of the Wills Act, which has ensured that even in situations whereby the deceased has left out certain dependents which have been specified in the Act, these people, if they can prove that they are entitled to maintenance can come to the courts. Now, we can even mention situations whereby negative social practices like female genital mutilation and forced marriage have been outlawed. And in some situations, I'm not saying critically that they are totally no longer in existence, but then the incidence of such things have reduced. Now, as Kweku said, and I side with him perfectly on this, there are incidents whereby there's selective justice. And the unfortunate situations that is those in power, those who should know better, who are taking advantage of the law and using it to their benefit. And the regular Ghanaians who unfortunately do not take advantage of their right to enforce the rights and benefits that they are entitled to under the laws, sit back and sometimes they are scared, they don't have the right education, or the mere thought of going to court, they see such a long and strenuous journey that they are willing to give up and allow these individuals to take advantage and to stamp on their rights. So I think that the law is not an ask, but then it is unfortunate that those in power, those who are responsible for the protection of the rights of the people, for enforcing the rights of these people, turn around and use those same laws to sometimes suppress them.
Right.
Because we live in a system where if we are really not educated about what we can and cannot do. So I really like the fact that the High Court decision in the Achimota student case really showed that it is not because a law exists, so we should just follow it blindly. Because here, the Constitution has provided for our right to freedom of religion. And in a situation whereby a school is trying to make laws to restrain or constrain someone from practicing something that is a clear expression of his religion, has been proved rightly again that yes, that you can make your law, but every law you do and every action you do should conform with the Constitution. So the law is not an act, but we have to allow the law the opportunity to rightly act in our benefit through taking a stand and going to court and saying that, please, I'd like to enforce my rights. And by educating people and making them understand that you do not need to do this. The law says you have the right to do it. This person cannot tell you what you cannot or can't do because you are entitled to this right under the law.
Great.
The law is not our opinion.
Thank you very much, Tracy. And Rosalind Amainkum, the question was to you before Tracy. So Rosalind, now to the topic, is the law an ass in your eyes? If it is, or as Kweku said, it could be misused, or as Tracy also said, it is those supposed to enforce it who may do a selective enforcement, what can be done?
Okay, I think that I would say to some extent the law is an ass. If you take the case of Martin Pebu, where he went to court to enforce to make all crimes bailable, the court granted that, and then now he has been struck out. And then also the case of Ampofo J, where he actually contested the AMA's authority to make people carry night soil. But also, to some extent, like with regard to the COVID-19 regulations that were passed, making private burials a maximum of 25 persons. I think 2 weeks ago, we all witnessed the funeral of Sir John, where there were a lot of people. And then the sad thing is that most of these people were actually the lawmakers who are supposed to set a leadership by example. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So now, if we look at our Rent Act 2, it says that a landlord is not supposed to request for rent for more than exceeding 6 months. But what is the reality on the ground? Some landlords actually request for as much as 5 years advance payment. So I would say to some extent, to a greater extent though, the law is an ask, but then in some respects, it does operate perfectly.
So what should be done?
I think the first thing is legal education. People do not know their rights. People do not know about the law in the book, so they're not willing to enforce it at all. And then also, the court should be made accessible. For instance, if you take some parts of Ghana, before you can access a court, you have to travel a long distance. And then there's also the cumbersome nature of the court. And there was an issue I witnessed when I was doing my internship about dockets getting missing in courts, which is very, I don't even know the word to use for it, but I think that legal education and also making the court easily accessible, and then institutions such as the legal aid and other government institutions that actually subsidize or cut off the legal charges should be strengthened.
Interesting.
To enable people. Yeah.
Interesting, and I'm really enjoying the discussion so far. We have heard from Kwekwa Prekoe Japong of the University of Ghana, Rosalind Ama Inkum of the University of Cape Coast, she just spoke, and also we heard from Tracy Ekuya Ansafosu of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Let's talk to Fafa again and Mame Sewa, and then we will bring in Professor Raymond Atugba, who is the Dean of the University of Ghana Law School, to look deeper and to begin to appreciate what these students who are just at the level of learning the law and having an appreciation that what they are studying is different from their reality in the country to a large extent. Okay, so Fafa, straight to the point again, you have said to some extent the law is an us, largely for you, but what exactly makes the law an us in your understanding, and what should be done before people lose faith in the system?
Yes, please. Thank you very much for your question again. Just to properly state my stance, the law is not an act.
Okay.
It's rather the application of the law by our chosen leaders that makes the law appear to be an act. Now, to your question about whether the law is an act.
Yes, go on.
No, the law is not an act.
Yes, explain. You have said that it is the implementers or the enforcers of the law who enforce it in ways that renders the law as an as perceived by people. So what should be done?
Okay, so taking into consideration the three arms of government, the executive, judiciary, and legislature, they are the forefront of implementing the laws. Now, when they fail to do that, it's too hard for the citizens to keep up. I will bring up some instances with regards to the banning of the excavators as directed by our executive, the president. We know that in my study of law, I have encountered a system that is definite and that is intentional about every step it takes. And we study due processes too. So obviously there's a due process to apprehending these people, arraigning them before a court and trying them and making sure that they face the fullness of the law. But by going ahead to ban the excavators doesn't really give any, it's not so exemplary a method to take up, because the excavators do serve as evidence and they've already been destroyed. So the destruction of such evidence, should the matter be taken to court, there's no way we can go back from a rather impulsive move by the executive. And also with regards to the eve of the 7th, where we saw many of our members of parliament bustling this out in a place where they are meant to make the laws. Obviously, they are teaching the citizens that if they can't conduct themselves in a good way, how are we expected to conduct ourselves properly? The funeral of Sir John, where we saw the enforcers of the law, even the president, and many political persons being in a space without properly adhering to the COVID-19 protocols. They're penalizing the organizers of a religious event for hosting their events without socially distancing.
All right. Well, in that case, actually, the EI on the COVID-19 actually bans funerals. So you are not supposed to have a funeral in the first place, and not even to talk about observing protocols. You can only have a private burial, which the EI says you can do it with 25 people maximum. Now, let's hear from Mame Sewa Tufor again, and then we go and speak to your teacher, your favorite teacher, on some of these things, and look forward to what sort of education in the law is available and can make all of us to think right and to insist on the right and make sure that the right things are done. So, Mami Sawa, the question now is the law unasked? And if it is, explain why. If it is not, why? And then what should be done to avoid a situation where people will lose faith in the law? Because as we have heard, many people are not happy because they are confused. There is one law, and they thought that the law would just give one process and everybody will follow. But someone else is doing it differently, and that is justified. Another person does something differently, and that is also justified.
Thank you very much. So far, I do agree with what my colleagues have said. However, I believe that the blame should not just be shifted to law enforcement or just to our leaders. When it comes to the law, like my colleague just said before me, all the three arms of government come into play. So the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, they all come into play. Now, when you take the executive, rightly so, they are not leading as they are supposed to. They are violating rules and laws that have been put in place. And like Apreku said, this is some kind of weapon that may make the citizens of the country perceive the law as an ass. But moving away from the executive, the judiciary itself, do I believe that they as an institution are making it in such a way that the society believes that the law is an ass? I'd say sometimes, because although we cite instances of enforcement, we can go into the Criminal and Other Offences Act. For example, you look at Section 57, which talks about suicide. Now, this is very problematic in our society because when it comes to the law being an ass, people are thinking, does the law make sense to me as a common man? Now, we have a situation where if you do attempt to commit suicide, you are imprisoned. Now, the question is, why is someone who wants to kill himself being made to go to prison, or why is that person being punished? To the layman, it wouldn't make sense because the layman would believe that this person actually needs help. So yes, the law can be weaponized for it to be perceived as an ass, but the law itself, the legislation, the laws that we have, the laws that are put in place sometimes are also very problematic. Now, what can the judiciary do about it? Now, we all know that according to our constitution, one of the sources of law is judicial precedent. Now, what the judiciary can do about it is to find ways in which they can accommodate these kind of, I don't know the right word to use, but these kind of irregularities in courts, such that people perceive the law as the law and not just an ass or as something that does not make sense to them. So does it make sense all the time? Does it make common sense all the time? I do not think so. Now, what is the way forward? Like I said, all the three arms of government should work together because it's not just about law enforcement. It's not just about politicians weaponizing it. It's about every single person in the various arms of government. They can come together, review the various statutes intermittently. And I believe that that would help people to know that their aspirations are being taken into consideration.
Thank you very much, Mami Sawa Tofo. And you guys just hang in there, bringing on now Professor Raymond Atugba, Dean, University of Ghana Law School. Thank you so very much for making the time. We know that you have a very tight schedule, but you agreed to join us even this briefly. Thank you so very much. Listening to your students, and these are students from 5 of the public universities in Ghana in the law faculties. First, I am amazed at their minds, the beauty, and their ability to see that what they are learning, in fact, is not what is the reality. Tell me what you think after hearing them.
Thank you, Samson, for having me. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, please.
Yes, it's always a pleasure for me to interact with young people. And so when you asked me to make an intervention here, I gladly agreed to come on. I've devoted my life to growing young people and young minds, so this is part of the effort. Now, to the question you asked and to the discussion for today, it's clear from the beautiful presentations you just heard from the students that there is less than optimum information and knowledge about law and legal matters, legal affairs. And each one of them mentioned that. Now, what makes this more important is that our lives are guided by the law, are tied to the law, locally, nationally, internationally. And so if we don't have the optimum availability of information and knowledge of the law to which our lives are tied and ordered, then it's problematic. It's problematic. And that's why legal education, as you said earlier, becomes important. Because legal educators must then fill that void, must then bridge that gap. And remember that to bridge that gap, you must address it both from formal, pure law, mixed law, and informal mechanisms. Otherwise, just training lawyers or students to become lawyers would satisfy only a small niche of the formal process of filling the gap. If you permit me, I can give you some examples of how the School of Law is trying to broaden the plane, broaden the strategy.
Yes, please go ahead.
Making more legal information available.
Right.
Yeah. First, take the LLB program. For a long time, University of Ghana School of Law, which you know is the best in the country, is best in West Africa, one of the best on the continent, has limited its LLB program to daytime schooling. So we have SSS students, we have post-first degree students, but they are all daytime. Beginning this coming academic year, we've changed. We're going to separate the SS students from the post-first degree students. This would allow people who normally have other things to do during the day to come and study law at the University of Ghana.
Interesting.
Yes, there are many people who have been calling us for years and asking us to do this. We haven't been able to do it. So these programs will run from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. On the weekdays, and it's good for people who have other things to do during the day. Applications are ongoing right now. The sad thing is that we have just about 10 more days. But the good thing is that it's all online. So you don't have to fill in paper forms. Even the upload of your certificate can be done online, 100% online. So all you need to do is click on the link and you'd finish your application process. The second one, Samson, which is important, is that our school provides master's degree opportunities for people who have never studied law. So many people think that before you study for a master's degree in the University of Ghana School of Law, you must have a first degree in law. That is not true.
Really?
Because if you want to broaden the availability of legal knowledge and legal resources to a critical mass of the population, you have to provide it also for people who don't have an LLB. So again, if you apply now, this coming academic year, you can study, for example, a master's in alternative dispute resolution, a master's in human rights and administration, without a prior law degree.
That's
we feel that it's critical for people, for example, who work in the ministries, who work in the Commission on Human Rights, who work in the Labor Commission, or generally who just want to know about ADR, about human rights, about the way the administrative system of the state works.
State that again, because it's fascinating. I don't have a first degree in law, but I can come in to do law at the master's level.
That is so. Normally, a law school would offer you an LLM, which we offer. But to broaden the access to legal information and legal knowledge to many more people, we created the Master of Arts in Law programs. In fact, Samson, from not this academic year, but the following one, there would be about 18 offers of those type of master's programs, covering everything from corporate governance and taxation to microfinance and, significantly, paralegal training. Because we want to train Master of Arts in Law holders who can then become paralegals and support lawyers and the functioning of the law the way in which paramedics support the medical profession. And for those of you who may be hesitating about this, I can inform you that the General Legal Council is in the process of developing the parameters for how paralegals would operate in Ghana.
All right. All right. Okay, so
I think the last one is our PhD program, which I'm sure Samson knows more about, which is meant to train professionals with a PhD who can teach law in the growing number of faculties in Ghana and in the sub-region. That way, you have more people who can train more lawyers. Because, as you know, Samson, my view is that we have too few lawyers in Ghana. We need more.
Right. So now, this is very fabulous, education that you are giving us. And for those of you who are listening and clearly are interested, there are many people who think that the doors to legal education have been shut. Now you are being told that even if you are working, there's going to be a flexible opportunity for you to get legal education and get it at the best of places, at the University of Ghana. You can, without a law degree, even do a Master's of Art in Law and then empower yourself and be able to function properly. Now, as I listen to these students, some of them your students, when I say your students, mean those you have taught directly, they say there are some difficulties. The law appears to be the law for the rich and more against the poor, and they are not happy about that. And therefore, you need to have the wherewithal. And you would have heard, for example, Tracy talk about even people who have to assert their rights, they need to go to court and they need to have access. Rosalind also spoke about that. They need to have access, that all of that will also come down to money. How do we ensure that people don't lose faith that the law, in fact, is for the rich?
Thanks, Samson. Two possible solutions. Because access to the law and access to lawyers has consistently been expensive, it follows that it's people who have resources, who have connections, who have money, who can access the law and make it work for them. Conversely, those who have less money, less privilege, less connections, cannot access the best of legal services to make the law serve them. It's been a big problem in many third world countries. Now, the solution to that is legal empowerment. Mm-hmm. And legal empowerment is empowering ordinary people who ordinarily don't have those resources for legal intervention to by themselves or with the help of cheaper or even volunteer paralegals to make the law work for them. So I'm clear on that unless we empower the bulk of Ghanaians legally, we can't solve that problem where the law seems to be working just for the privileged and not for the underprivileged. Okay. The second and last thing I want us to watch is that consistently, third world countries are implementing a mechanism of legal aid that is quite alien to our economies, our societies, and our politics. I'll give you one example. In most countries in the developed world, the percentage of people who can pay for legal services is limited. In other words, most of the society earn an income which makes them capable of accessing and paying for legal services. And then a smaller percentage in that country do not have access to legal aid, and then the state provides. So for example, 90% can pay, and the state provides for 10%. The mistake we've often made is to pick that model and then apply it to a place like Ghana, where the table is turned. The table is turned because in Ghana, 10% can pay for effective superlegal services, and 90% cannot pay. That is a recipe for failure. It just will not work. It has not worked since independence, and it will not work. For communities and societies such as ours, you have to implement strategies for legal empowerment in order to get out of that conundrum.
All right.
Because there's no way the state can pay for legal services for lawyers for 90% of the population.
Now, before we let you go, very briefly, I was very excited about the things you said about the opportunities of legal education. And you also said that people can do these things online. Can you please repeat how people can access the opportunities available online quickly for us, and then you can take leave of us?
Yes, so if you go to our website, the University of Ghana School of Law website, you can just type that in Google, it will come up. You would see that the admissions process for both the evening program and the master's program and the PhD program. Remember, the master's program is for people who don't have any first degree in law, Master of Arts program. You go online and it will take you step by step through a process that involves 100% online application. If you get to any point where they are demanding paper for you to submit at the school, no, you're at the wrong place. Everything is 100% online. You can sit at home and in 1 or 2 hours, finish the entire application process. And there are telephone numbers and email addresses there for you to call for assistance 24 hours if you need any help in the process.
Okay. Professor Raymond Atugba, thank you so very much for making time out of your very busy schedule to join us. Professor Raymond Atugba is Dean, University of Ghana Law School. Also started his presentation by appreciating the beautiful minds that the young ladies and gentlemen have expressed on the show. We can give you a very brief time to call us to tell us what your view of the law as it applies in Ghana is and what you think can be done. You can actually ask the students any question and let them also share their views with you. So, as we always do, look on our screens and the phone lines will roll immediately. Now, gentlemen and ladies, you all talk about the need for legal education and empowerment, which Professor Raymond Atugba has also reinforced. Beyond the formal way of doing it, as in going to school to get the education, what do you think we can do as a country beyond the formal way of empowering citizens with legal education? Tracy, you talked about people needing to know their rights. Almost all of you spoke about people needing to know their rights so that they can assert them. Which one of you would like to go first? Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, quickly go.
Okay, so I believe that's what the media is for. You know, law is a very broad area, so we cannot educate everybody on everything. For instance, something like international humanitarian law is advanced and people would not really need it. But there are certain basic things such as bail, such as being stopped in traffic, such as police assault and brutality, such as the payment of rent and the legal issues arising thereof, such as the procedure you have to go through before you purchase a plot of land in that regard.
Right.
These things, I believe, such basic things that affect the daily lives of average Ghanaians ought to be taken up through the media, primarily state-owned television stations such as GTV, Ubonu and Co. The radio stations can also do their part.
Now, Koku, hold on. Koku, hold on for me. Maybe I have a question from one of our listeners to all of you. But like you say, the legal education, that is why the law show is for. And we do that every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Abdul, you are calling from Tamale. What's your question or contribution? Quickly.
Yes, quickly. Mr. Sampson, I'm very grateful to have you on your medium contribute. Mr. Sampson, it's very, very, very fascinating this afternoon to listen to your legal brains and the legal, should I say, what is the way that I'm back?
Education. Education.
Education. Yes, you have said it all. The education, some of this, and we have the opportunity to sit this afternoon and listen to you. And I'm not, let's say, I didn't. I'm very, very happy this afternoon.
Okay.
I have nowhere to.
All right. Okay, thank you very much for commending the students who have been sharing on their views of the law. Richard, you are calling from Kenya. Richard, what's happening in Kenya?
Kenya in Ahafo region.
I know. Please. Kenya, tell us what's going on.
Everything is all cool in here.
Right.
I appreciate these beautiful minds out there and what they are espousing. I would like to know, why can't the law be made in such a way that the ordinary person who is not rich, who hasn't been to school, will have it just at the tips of the fingers than going through hustle bustle before you get a good legal services?
Thank you, Richard. Richard was calling us, called us from Kenya. JJ, you are calling us from UPS Law Faculty. Thank you, JJ. Let's hear you.
Thompson, thank you. I would have to blame you for not extending an invitation to my faculty.
Well, we can't have all of you at the same time. Some other time.
Agree.
Thank you, JJ. Go ahead.
Let me make my point. I think that the substantive law, properly so called, is really not an act, but the enforcement and the regulators are the ones that make it an act, because there has been punishment for those who flout the law.
That's right.
There has been damages for those who breaches simple contractual provisions. Let's take a critical case about the NSNOGRI and EC. The court actually said that when Parliament, because Parliament has not made laws as in how much the state should charge with respect to accessing the right information. And so they awarded 1,500. In the Galamsey case, they are awarded 6,000. And so what happens to the predictability and the certainty of the law? So I think that the law has made provision for all these things around us, but it's about the application of the law,
right,
and then the enforcement of the law. So I think that the law is really not an act, but the procedures that comes with it.
Thank you very much. So next time we'll extend an invitation to UPSA Law Faculty so that you can join us also. William, you are calling from Cape Coast. What do you have to say, William?
Yeah, thank you for the education. My point is the issue you raised about the small population is having more affluence in getting the law. It benefits them and a greater portion. Government has to just come in. But there's no way all of us will be able to educate ourselves legally.
Right.
So government has to be all empowering the legal aid and other areas. Other than that, something else will happen. Because at the end of the day, the rich is just getting benefited.
Okay.
And the poor is still struggling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. I'll take my very final call from Yao. Yao, you are calling us from Airport. So we hear from Yao, and then we take about just a minute from all of you, our guests. So Yao, let's hear you from Airport Residential Area.
I'm interested about the point. Even though some of us have not gone to school before, but we have gone to court several times, and we realize that the law of this land is not working. The law of our land is not working. If you go to court, if some lawyers have been making business with the judges, so at the end of the day, they will go and see the judges in chamber. I experienced it in court. So you realize that the politicians are more powerful than the law. In this country, the politicians are more powerful than the law.
Okay,
if you are poor.
Thank you. Thank you. Your point is well noted. Of course, issues of corruption within the judiciary have been brought up, but when you have to raise such issues, we'll be very grateful if we are specific with evidential situations so that we don't unnecessarily, as it were, defame people. All right, so starting with Rosalind, what will be your very final words in some 30 seconds? Okay, Rosalind dropped. Tracy, let's hear you, Tracy.
Hi. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
It's Rosalind.
Yes, go ahead. In some 30 seconds, what's your final words? Hello, Tracy, go ahead. Let's listen to Tracy.
So, in my opinion, I think one of the most important ways which can help improve the role of the law is legal education. And I think that the National Commission for Civic Education has an important role to play here.
All right.
Now, the law must be necessarily applicable, or should I say be in the possession of to be accessed by every single person at their fingertips, because the law to some extent is quite technical, but there are certain aspects of the law that should be made accessible and explained to the people. Aspects about how they can be granted bail and what conditions they can be granted bail, substantive issues about what is legal and what is not, and their basic rights, how to enforce the law. I think if government institutions like the NCCE and all these
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. For some 30 seconds, Fafa, let's hear you. What will be your final words?
The government is mandated to resource the NCCE to carry out the education of the citizens with regards to the law and what works for them. The law is not an art, but we have beautiful laws in this country. It's up to our leaders to help us ensure that the laws are put to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am Sewa, let's hear you.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues. The NCCE should do their part, or they should be more empowered. But apart from that, I believe that there are various law schools, there are many law schools in the country, whereby students can also do some legal outreach to educate people in their communities. Lawyers can do so. We should intensify legal aid as well and legal education. So lawyers, law students, and the NCCE. And I think little drops of water may make a mighty ocean.
Thank you very much. Hello, Rosalind. In some 20 seconds, we are running out of time.
I think that we can make use of our social institutions, like, for instance, the way the churches can sometimes group into men's and then women's groupings. We can visit the churches sometimes, or some legal personnel to give them certain advice.
Thank you all so very much. Thank you also very much. And I was interacting with Rosalind Ama Inkum of the University of Cape Coast, Tracy Equia and Safosu of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology Law Faculty, Kwekua Praku Ejapong, University of Ghana School of Law, and Bernadette Fafa Nkuvi, also from the Central University Law Faculty, and then Mami Sewato for University of Ghana. Thank you all so much. We're also joined by Professor Raymond Atugba, Dean of the University of Ghana Law School. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini. As always, thank you so very much. Next week, God willing, we come your way with the law. That's your legal light and your health law.